very much, one all, for coming along tonight. It's a super turnout. In appalling conditions with rain, what have you, so I'm very, very grateful for such a good showing. My name is Chris French. I'm chairman of the Mid Sussex Assembly. We're a local organisation, grassroots group. We number about 200 odd members now on Telegram. You can find us there. And we've got some leaflets that we circulated, and there's some more by the door if you want to take one away with you. And we would be over the moon if you might want to consider joining us. And what we're about is we are a group that's very diversified. We have trades, professionals, lawyers, accountants, we've got tradespeople as well, people from all walks of life and time, teachers, nurses, and so on. And we're united perhaps in the sense of we question deeply government policies, towards COVID-19 in a nutshell, and so we look at that and we take action local, local outreach, so to speak. So we're very active in that sense. And if you want to participate in that, you're all welcome, obviously. One thing to also mention is that on many of the chairs, there's a copy of this document here. This is issued by an organisation called Together, and it's a very important organisation, very close to my heart. And what this organisation is doing is that they are standing up for the NHS workers. As you may know, there are mandated vaccines that these guys have got to take, and there's some extraordinary numbers involved of people who are refusing, quite rightly. It's their body after all, they have sovereignty over it, and they do not want to take, as they see it, an experimental drug into their bodies. And apparently the number is something like 100,000 or some extraordinary figure of NHS workers who are basically being threatened with the sack if they don't comply. I mean, it's unprecedented, it's unheard of, it's disgusting. So yeah, please, if you get a chance, pick up a copy of this, or if you haven't already, sign the declaration. It's on the web, search for Google, find it that way, and it's called Together. Right, our guest tonight is Dave Murphy, also known as Allegedly Dave, so let's have a brief round of applause for Dave. Dave, as he says on his website, and I highly recommend his website to you, which is simply allegedlydave.com. Yeah. He's a very interesting character. In his own words, he's an ordinary guy who's had a very extraordinary life, I suppose. A lot of very unusual experiences. And so, in a nutshell, if you don't mind me saying, Dave, according to your website, I'm sure this is gospel truth, essentially Dave has had a very interesting life, as I say, and he worked very hard, and he worked for Fortune 500 companies in New York. He comes from Paddington originally, and he did extremely well. A photograph on his website of a bright red Ferrari. He's doing extremely well in life, made an awful lot of money, and was enjoying material things in life. He was happily married at that time, and so forth. And then in 2001, he was based in New York, and the awful Twin Towers and that incident. He was working opposite, wasn't he, the Twin Towers, I believe, and obviously, very well what happened on 9/11. And that was kind of a sort of wake-up call. And he started to realise perhaps one of the most important things in life, other than material possessions and so forth. And that was a very important turning point, many of the turning points in your life. So, without further ado, time is of the essence. And I know David said to me he's going to try and cram 5 hours worth of a normal talk into a couple of hours tonight. So, without any further delay, let's do it today.
I guess I don't have to tell you who I am. Right, so I kind of like audience participation here, right? So let's not be silent, okay? So as Chris said, my normal common law talk is about 8 hours long, and you guys haven't got 8 hours, so I'm going to try and squeeze it all into 2 hours, right? So I might have to go at breakneck speed, okay? So before we start, I want you all to tell me what a curved yellow fruit is. All of you. One more time. Good. Okay. Now I want all of you to stand up. Stand up, please. Yes, I am a dictator. You really stand up. Now I want you for a few seconds to stand on one leg. Just for a few seconds. Everyone doing that? Okay, you can all sit down. Thank you very much. Okay, so what is common law? Common law is essentially natural law written down, or the Most High's law. Yeah, we call it God's law. Okay, we all know what that is. We all have that written on our hearts. Yeah, we all know what's right and what's wrong. Okay, so common law is essentially the 10 Commandments boiled down. Okay, it boils down to do not cause harm, injury, or loss to people or their property, and don't be fraudulent in your contracts. So don't lie. Okay, that's it. That's it. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, encore. Yeah. Okay. So essentially, that's it. If you break these simple rules, that is what's known as a crime. Okay? It's important for you to get that because, these days, the police and the government are trying to make everything criminal. But the point is, if there's no injured party, there is no crime. Okay? So, as I said, everyone knows what's right and what's wrong. Even the psychopaths know, but they just don't care. Okay? Now, there's another thing called universal law, and this becomes very important because the powers that be go to an awful lot of extraordinary lengths to avoid universal law. There is a universal law that says everything that you put out there is going to come back at you, multiplied. I don't know if can everybody see the screen? It's very small for those at the back. Those people in the cheap seats, can you see the screen? Yeah, good. Okay. Right, so yes, everything you put out there is going to come back at you, multiplied. So if I was to say, punch Davey in the face there, right? Yeah, if I come up and punch Davey in the face, right, is that a crime? Is that a crime?
Yes.
Crying out loud. Right, yes, it is a crime, yeah? And it's also going to invoke universal law, because if I punch Dave in the face, right, I'm probably going to trip off at that stage and bash my face in 7 times worse than Dave got, right? That's universal law. People call it karma, it's more direct than that, okay? But what if I said to Dave, David, do you mind if I punch you in the face? Not at all. So, when I punch him in the face, is that a crime? No, because he agreed to it. Yeah, and is it going to come back on me? No, because we made an agreement, and I just held up my part of the agreement. So you'll notice, right, in this world, the powers that be, before they do anything, right, most people say that they tell us about it. No, they don't just tell us about it. They get our agreement first. Then they do it, and then it doesn't come back on them. Okay? So, along with this idea of the law that's written in your hearts, okay, is a whole body of case law. That is, decisions made by juries over the centuries to deal with all the nuances around common law. Simple as that. The juries make decisions on these little nuances, between cause no harm, injury or loss. Okay? So that's what it is. It's just a whole bunch of case law spanning centuries. Okay? Now I say that juries make the decisions, not judges. Because judges in a courtroom do not have power. The power, who is the highest authority in the land? Anyone know? We are! Yes, we are. We the people are the highest authority in the land. And a jury of 12 ordinary people is representing the rest of us. So in a court, they are the highest authority in the land. And this is where the power is. Yeah? On this image, there's the politician, the Queen can be there, the police can be there too. Yeah? We give them our authority. Right? And as soon as we lose interest and walk away, they're going down. They get their power from us. Okay? And this is a very important thing, again, to get, because You know, we've been brainwashed from almost birth to believe that we are lower than low. And all these officers and politicians and everybody else are above us. It's not true. We have the power. They gain their authority from us. Okay? So this is how it works. The world is separated into two parts here. We have what's lawful and what's legal. Lawful is about common law. Okay? It's the law of the land. And on the other side, kind of mirroring what's in real life, is the fake, is the statutes and acts for maritime admiralty law, the law of the sea. Okay? So the legal system is like a thin veneer over the top of common law, which is the real law. Okay? So lawful is anything that doesn't cause harm, injury or loss, fraud or threat. So you can do anything you like, as long as you don't harm anyone. So you can strip off naked and run down the high street screaming if you like. That's not against the law. Yeah, well, for some people it should be, but you know. But it's not against the law, right? You can do anything you like, as long as you don't harm anyone. On the other side, legal is whatever the government allows you or licenses you to do. Yeah? One's expansive, the other one's restrictive. Okay? The lawful side pertains to sovereign beings. All of you are sovereign beings. Okay? You are kings and queens without subjects. Right? And the law applies to you. On the other side, the legal system only applies to government employees and corporate employees and anyone who consents to it. Okay? On the lawful side, you have rights. You have inalienable rights. Rights that can't be taken away from you. So you can certainly give them away if you want. And on the other side here, you are granted privileges. And they can absolutely be taken away from you. You know, every time you are a naughty boy or girl, they'll take them away from you. And on this side, the common law is upheld by constables. You remember the constables? Remember the Doc Dixon and Doc Green type? Who used to be the Bobby on the beat, who everyone in the neighbourhood would know? And he would know everybody in your neighbourhood? Yeah? He'd be the one who would, catch the kids romping apples and give a click around the ear and say, don't do that again or I'm going to tell your mum. Yeah? But that got, those guys got replaced by these people called police officers, policy enforcers, not upholding the law, but enforcing statutes and acts, which they're not actually allowed to do. We'll get to that later. But along with that, I don't know if you remember, but when we had these guys, it used to be called the police service. Then it morphed very slowly into a police force. Service, force. Slight difference there, right? So, a statute or act is defined as a legislated rule of society given the force of law, which should tell you right there that it's not law. It gets the force of law by the consent of the governed. Who's the governed? Remember what I said about audience participation? Yeah. Yes, we are the governed, so we give the consent to these laws. Now, the government will try and tell you that you've already given your consent because you voted for one of their politicians. Right? That's not true. Whenever you come up against the law or the legal system, you're going to be asked for your consent there and then. Okay? And if you consent, well, now it becomes law to you. Okay? An example of that is if the policeman stops you and says, I'm charging you for doing 50 and 30, do you understand? Some of you know this already, yeah? So yes, he says, do you understand? but he's not speaking in English, and we're going to get into this in a little later. But he's not speaking English. He's using the word understanding that is legalese, foreign language, and it means to stand under, to consent, to agree by it, to be bound by it. Okay? So when you say yes to that, now you've consented. Now that law, that statute becomes law to you. Do you get that?
Yes.
Oh, one or two you do. Good. So yes, if you agree or confess to being a government employee or a fictional entity created by government, then it becomes law to you. Okay, that just sums up what I was just saying. So, let's have a look at the hierarchy we're talking about here. So, above everybody, above everything, is the Creator, whoever you deem that to be. Okay? The Creator created us. Every man, woman and child on earth is at that level. There isn't a Rothschild or a Gates or a Rockefeller above us. No, they're all at the same level. The sovereign being level. Okay? We collectively create government. Government is under us. Yeah? Government is subservient to us. A creative thing is less than the creator. Okay? Government, in turn, creates all sorts of fictional entities. Citizen, driver, person, taxpayer, resident, voter, driver. All these fictional entities that only exist on paper. The trick is to get you, in your sovereign capacity, remember, above government, where government can't touch you, right, get you to give up your sovereign status and accept a lower status as one of these things. Good evening, sir. Are you the driver of this vehicle? You say yes. Well, now you've given up your natural right to travel in any way you see fit to accept this position as a driver. And that driver comes on with all sorts of rules, regulations, taxes, fees, insurances, blah, 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 blah. Okay? But you gave up your natural right to accept that benefit privilege offered by government. Okay? So does it apply to you? So Tesco's has a rule for its employees, especially if you're likely to work on a till. If you work for Tesco's, you're not allowed to walk into that shop with money in your pocket. Because obviously if you work on the tills, Tesco's don't know if the money's yours or came out of the till. So you're not allowed to walk into that store with money. If you don't work for Tesco's, does it apply to you? No, it doesn't. Let's say you walk in there, you used to work for Tesco's, and you walk in there one day and the security guard stops you and says, "Don't you work for Tesco's?" And absent-mindedly you say, "Yeah." Well, now you've confessed to working for Tesco's, and if you've got money in the pocket, that security guard can grab you and apply whatever punishment would go along with that. Because you confessed. Doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, it's right or wrong, you confessed. Okay? That works in this system as well. So, if you identify, okay, this is another legal fiction word, a legalese word, identify, you might think it means recognise. No, it means to make the same as, yeah? Which is make the same as one of these. So if you identify as a fictional entity, you create something called joinder. Yeah, you've joined yourself to this fictional entity. And now government can do whatever they like with you. Right? So the government assumes that you are an employee or citizen of the government. Okay? So is there any evidence that you are a government employee? Do you think there's evidence of that? That you personally are a government employee? I think there is. This is proof, to the government at least, that you are one of their citizens or persons or employees. The person is the straw man here in this case. A person is not what you think it is. You are not a person. You have a person. A person is a corporation. a dead entity. Corporation, the dead speaks. Yeah? So this is evidence that you are something called a person. So this birth certificate, right? Well, it's made up with this thing called a first name and a surname. Do you have a first name and a surname? Yeah. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have a first. No, you have a given name. You have a given name, a name given to you by your parents, and a family name. The government creates something called a first name in all capital letters and a surname in all capital letters, and jams them both together. Because how many times in your life has somebody come up to you and said, to me, say, "Hello, David Murphy. How are you, David Murphy?" No, they don't. They just say your given name or maybe even a nickname, but they never ever jam the two names together. Okay? The government did that. They created this thing called a person with your name in all capitals, as a first name and a surname. So on the birth certificate, it actually says, "Warning, this certificate is not evidence of the identity of the person presenting it." It's not there for your identity. Yeah? It's also, somewhere on it has the words Crown copyright, which means that name isn't yours. It belongs to the Crown. Yeah? And every time you use it, you're breaking the law. Okay? So when did this come about? It came about during the Great Fire of London. Okay? While the Great Fire of London was raging, and the Black Death was going around, okay? Lots of people were dying left, right, centre. But while the fire was burning, Parliament sat. And Parliament enacted a piece of legislation in French, so the English wouldn't know what was in it, called the Cestui Act of 1666. 1666. Yeah, so the Cestui Act 1666, what it did was, it declared that everyone was dead, because they didn't know who was dead or who was alive. They said, everyone is dead. So because everyone's dead, we, the government, are going to administer everybody's share of the country. So imagine, this country's natural wealth is in the trillions. Okay? Now divide however many trillions that is by 67 million, and that's how much your share of the country's worth. Still some figure in the billions. Okay? That's why essentially everything in this country is prepaid for you, because you own a share of the country. Okay? But the government, because of this act, has become the shareholder, your shareholder. Okay? Now in this act, they actually declared that, or gave a provision, that if you present yourself to the government before the age of 7, you can claim your share of the country back. But they didn't tell anybody that they could do that. And there's nothing in the Act that tells you how to do it. And because it's in French, nobody knew that was even a thing. Right? So until this day, nobody knows how to do it. Okay? So, before the age of 8, a boy has a title. Anybody know what the title is? Master. So what do you think a master is? Master is, so a master cannot be imprisoned. A master can't be fined. And a master can't be accosted in any way, just like a 7-year-old boy. Yeah? But if you don't present yourself, and present yourself as being alive, then you get another title after the age of 8. What's that? Mister. So what do you think that means? No, Mister. That's a good one. No, it actually means, if you look it up, it actually means somebody who's engaged in mystery. M-I-S-T-E-R-Y. So you look up mystery in the legal dictionary, it means a trade or business. So in other words, a corporation. Okay? So the word Mr. means corporation. Women aren't really highly regarded in this system. So what's your first title? Miss. What do you think that means? Never hit the target. No, it means miss out, ignore, no status whatsoever. Yeah. But that changes when you get married. So what title do you take on then? What do you think that means? Well, let's see, if I spelled it, M-R-apostrophe-S. Misters, belonging to the mister, belonging to the trade or business. When you get married, it's a corporate merger between you, your partner, and the state. And the state have an interest in the products of that corporate merger, i.e. children. Okay? So this is how they trick us all the time with words, with word magic, and I'll get into that in a second. But it's all about consent and agreements, yeah? And they trick us all the time to get our consent. Okay? So I want you to look at this image. Now I made this image myself, so I know what's right. But these two circles are different. So I want you to tell me which is the biggest one, red or the blue? Red. So hands up. Who said? I'm going to find out who's right brain and who's left brain now. So hands up. Who says the red one is the biggest one? Okay. Okay. What about who says the blue is the bigger one? So a few more say blue. Okay, there's a lot of people who didn't put their hand up, really. So they're the same. Who says they're the same? Just give me someone. Okay, what? You say they're the same. Well, I'm telling you, I made this picture, right? So they are different. So which one's the biggest one? Which one's the biggest one? No, I'm telling you, I made this myself, yeah? I did this myself, so which one's the biggest one? Sorry? I'm telling you, right? I know the answer here, because I made this, yeah? So, which one's the biggest one? Red.
I can't see the difference.
Right, well, the point is they are the same. Well, what I did for most of you there was word magic. Yeah? I said these circles are different. Well, they are. One's red, one's blue. And then I said, which one's the biggest one? I didn't lie to you. Yeah? I just used word magic. And there were some that I said, those of you who said that it was the same, I used more word magic, and I didn't quite get you, but I got some of you. I got some of you, even though you saw that they were the same, I got you to change your mind, change your reality. And the thing is, sometimes when I do this, even when I say they're the same, there's some people go, I still think the red one's bigger. Yeah? Because that's how powerful this word magic is. Yeah? It is so powerful that a very clever hypnotist can hypnotise you, or hypnotise some people, and make them believe an onion is an apple. And for them, it is their reality. You can't tell them. They're biting into that onion. You can't tell them that's an onion. They're going to say, oh, you're stupid, this is an apple. Right? That's how powerful it is. Okay? And we have the biggest hypnotist in the world in our front rooms. Right? There was a reason why they gave us all these TVs. I don't know if you remember, some of you remember that when TVs first came out, they were fabulously expensive. But then the government made sure that everyone could rent one for £1 a week, yeah, from Rediffusion or DER or something. There's a lot of people too young to remember that, but the point is, the government made sure that everybody had a TV. Yeah? They didn't do that for our benefit. None of it's for our benefit. It means they can program us en masse. Okay? Give us a false reality, just like this guy. Yeah? That's what it's there for. So here's the crux of the legal system. It comes down to the language of the legal system. It's called legalese. Yeah? It's a foreign language. Even though it looks like English, it sounds like English, right? It's a completely foreign language because all the words have been redefined to mean something else. Okay? So the word register. Okay, we all think we might know what that means. It means like to record. No, when you register something, you hand over title ownership of whatever you're registering with whoever you're registering with. So when you register your car, right, you're handing over ownership of that car to the DVLA. And you become the registered keeper. Keeper, not owner. Okay? The DVLA owns the car. When you register your child, you become the pair that rents them. Yeah. Okay? So literally, this is another, what they call prima facie piece of evidence that the government owns that child. Because you've handed over ownership to the government. I've already mentioned what person means, it's corporation. The word identify, I mentioned that as well, to make the same as. The word notice. So you might get in the post like, notice of intended prosecution. Anybody got one of those? Yeah. Come on, own up, yes you have. I know. So you might get a notice of intended prosecution. So why don't they just say prosecution? Why am I giving you notice of intended prosecution? Well, the word notice means offer. It's an offer of a prosecution. Do you want to be prosecuted? Yeah? And if you miss the window for you to object, then they take that as you saying yes. Okay. So the word summons kind of gives you the impression that you're forced to appear somewhere. You're obliged to appear somewhere. The word summons means invitation. You're being invited to appear at a private corporation's place of business for one of their summary judgment services. That's what it is. The word must also gives you the impression that there's an obligation on you. The word must is synonymous with the word may. So when it says you must do something, or you may do something. Very tricky. The word understand you already know, to stand under, to consent to. The next one includes, that's a very tricky one. Okay? When you look in the legal dictionary, in Black's Law Dictionary, you won't find the regular sort of term and definition. All you find under includes is a bit of Latin. Inclusio unium est exclusio ulterius. Oh, I did that really smoothly, didn't I? Sound like I know that. Well, what that means is the inclusion of one is the exclusion of others. So, let's imagine you get a diktat from the government that says everyone must pay £5,000, including homeless people. Well, in your mind you think, well, everyone's got to pay this, including those homeless people who think they're exempt. No, it means only homeless people have to pay it. The inclusion of one is the exclusion of others. Yeah? Very tricky, because it sets up a different idea in your mind. That's what it's meant to do. The word requirement, yeah, it means request. So if it's a legal requirement, it's a legal request. And a request is something you can politely decline. The word apply means to beg. So when you make submit an application for registration, well, the word submit means to bend to somebody else's will. Right? So you're bending to somebody else's will and begging them to take your stuff. That's what it is. So here's a couple more legalese words that, we're kind of pressing right now. The word mandate. So I'm going to read this. A mandate is a written command given by a principal to an agent, specifically a commission or contract by which one person, the mandator, requests someone, the mandatory, to perform some service gratuitously, for free, voluntarily. The commission becoming effective when the mandatory agrees. So something that's mandatory is voluntary. And it becomes mandatory as soon as you agree to it. That's what the word means legally. The word compulsory, well, the first word, mandated, so that means that this applies, mandated by legal process or by statute. What's the power of a statute? Gets the force of law by your consent. So both of these mean voluntary. It's all word magic, because a lot of people are going to hear the words mandatory and compulsory and think, I've got to do it. It goes back to, there's a bit of psychology. If you go to a shop and try and return some clothing and you don't have the receipt, a bod on the desk is going to go, sorry, you can't do that. 9 out of 10 people are going to turn around and go, okay, I'm going home. But there's going to be one person who will stand there and say, get the manager out here. Manager comes out and says, you know what, I'm going to do it for you just this once. The point is, he has to do it. It's the law. He has to let you return the clothes without a receipt. But it makes good business sense for him to put an authority figure on the desk to lie to people, because 9 out of 10 people are just going to accept the lie without question. Okay? So when people hear these words, 9 out of 10 people are going to accept it without question. Okay? The government says I have to, so I have to. Right? So all the psychology. And you're going to find that this world is awash in this legalese type language. So we're going to have a quick look at contracts. These are important because what you'll find is you end up embroiled in contracts without knowing it. Right? The contracts are everywhere, and most of the time they're hidden ones, and you just end up in one without even thinking about it. So there are 4 elements to a contract, okay? And all of these elements must be in place, otherwise the contract is null and void. Okay? And you're going to find that every single one of the contracts you find yourself in, they're all null and void. Right? So, I like to remember these 4 items by the acronym FLEM. So, that's easy for me. So, first one, full disclosure. The terms and conditions of that contract must be fully disclosed and included within the body of the contract. So the contract you sign, it's got to have all the terms and conditions on it. Well, one of the contracts, we'll get into it in a little while, the driving licence is a contract, okay? But it's not, it doesn't give you full disclosure, because the terms and conditions of that driving licence are in the Road Traffic Act, not on the document you sign. Okay? So it fails on that one. Next one is lawful terms and conditions. The terms and conditions must be lawful. Any element of fraud in a contract makes it null and void. Okay? So, the terms and conditions essentially are you giving up a natural, inalienable right for a measly benefit privilege. That's not lawful. Okay? Equal consideration. That means both sides have to put up something of equal value in the contract. Okay? Once again, you giving up an expansive right for a restricted privilege, that's not equal. Okay? The last one is manifestation of intent. Your signature is manifestation of intent. It's saying, I'm signing this because this is my intention. Okay? Now, on a contract, there has to be 2 signatures for both parties. Again, most of the contracts you find yourself in will only have your signature on it. Okay? As I said, every contract has to have all of these in place, otherwise it's unenforceable. So, 4 ways you can agree to a contract. The most notable one is a written contract. And as I said, most of these contracts are hidden ones that you don't know you're entering into. And I gave you the example of a driving licence because most people think the driving licence is a certificate of competency, where the grumpy guy with the clipboard bashing your dashboard, right, is saying, well, I've just watched this guy and he's a good driver, so I'm going to say he's passed. But that driving instructor does not sign your driving licence, does he? No, he doesn't. Who signs it? You do. So it's not a certificate of competency, it's a contract. It's a contract waiving your natural right to travel any way you see fit for the benefit privilege of being something called a driver. Okay? And all the rules and regulations and taxes and fees that goes along with it. Right? So, as I said, your signature is powerful. Your signature is very powerful. And we give that signature away, at the drop of a hat. Imagine, you go to a bank, right? You can go to that bank and walk away with £100,000. What do they take from you? Your signature. It's that powerful. I've got a lot to get through, so I don't think I can answer questions until...
Do you actually know people that have had tax licences and been able to travel back and forth without actually having a driving licence on them?
Yeah, there's a whole class of people who don't have a driving licence and don't get hassled. They call them travellers. That's true. Your signature is very powerful and it's of unlimited value. So be careful. If somebody's asking you to sign something, be wary. Because again, your signature is worth a lot. Okay? And you don't know what you're giving away when you sign something. So always read and dissect the contract before signing it. Okay? Now when I came back to this country in 2010, I had to open a bank account. So the bank said to me, here's an application form, just sign this. Oh, thank you. Oh, it's kind of you. He said, just sign here and we'll open the account for you. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take this home. I'm going to read through it, I'm going to come back in the morning. So I took it home, read through it, and I found a couple of charges I didn't like. So I crossed them out. And I put my initials after them. Okay? Did that twice. If I'd been a bit more savvy, I could have written in what I wanted in that contract and then put my initials. So when I signed it, I folded it back up, and I went back into the bank the next morning. And just as they expected me to sign it without reading it, they accepted it without reading it. So a few months later, my bank balance dipped below zero for a microsecond, and I went, £30 charge. I said, I'm not paying it. Oh, you have to. Oh, no, I don't. It's not in our contract. Oh, yes, it is. Go and check. A couple of weeks later, I got a letter saying, we're going to remove that charge. Because you have power in a contract. You have just as much power in a contract as the other party. Okay? They haven't taught us this at school, that you have power in contracts. Okay? You can do exactly the same thing. What's supposed to happen is that I cross those things out, they read through it and go, he doesn't like the £30 charge. What about £15? Oh, yeah, I'd be better if it's 10. Okay, done. And then we've agreed, now we sign, now it's a contract. Yeah? But obviously it doesn't go that way. And these days they're trying to put everything online, so your only option is tick a box and press OK. Yeah? Because they're trying to remove that power from you. Okay? There's also something called the Four Corners Rule. Anybody know the Four Corners Rule? Well, the Four Corners Rule. Sorry? Don't look at me. I just want to know if you knew it. Okay, so the Four Corners Rule is, again, very sneaky. Anything that appears in a box on that document is not part of the document. You can ignore it. Literally. So if it's in a box, or sometimes they just put the corners. I don't know if you've seen that. Just put the corners. Yeah? If it's in four corners, it's not part of the document. You can ignore it and read the document without it. And you can bet that whatever's in that box is going to colour what's in the rest of the document in your mind. Okay? It's very tricky. Again, it's all about deception. But once you sign a document, once you sign a contract, now it becomes law. It's you agreed to something, and now it comes to do all you say you will do. Right? So, protecting your signature, as I said, your signature is very valuable. So if you're being forced to sign something, so let's say you're on the side of the road and the police have stopped you, and for some reason they're saying, well, you've got to sign this. otherwise we're going to arrest you or we're going to keep you here or whatever. Yeah? And you're forced to sign something. Well, write the words under duress as part of your signature. Yeah? Sometimes they might say, oh, that's not your signature. Well, how do you know? Yeah? The words under duress means that you're being forced to sign, which means that signature is null and void. So it's as though you've not signed it. Okay? You can't be held against you in a court of law or anywhere because you were forced to sign it. Okay? As a kind of rule, if you're signing any document, you might want to put the words without prejudice as part of your signature. Without prejudice basically means, and I'll read this out, I reserve my right not to be compelled to perform under any contract or commercial agreement, but I do not enter knowingly, voluntarily and intentionally, and I do not accept the reliability of the compelled benefit of any contract or commercial agreement not revealed to myself, which are my rights pursuant to common law. So basically you're saying, if there's any bullshit attached to this, I'm not being held to it, essentially. So you're reserving your common law rights, and you can do that just by writing it without prejudice on it. Okay? So the second way to agree is a verbal contract. Okay? And the way that most people enter into a verbal contract is by answering questions. So when I said to David, would you like me to punch you in the face?
Yes, please.
Right, so now we have a verbal contract, which means we made this contract, and after we leave here, I can still punch him in the face because he's already agreed.
Without prejudice.
Without prejudice, so with him answering yes to that question, we've now got a verbal contract between us, and now I can do whatever I like within the terms of that contract. Do you understand? Yeah, again, that if you say yes to that to a policeman, well, now you've got a verbal contract, and now you've consented to things. So the way to get around that is to answer questions with questions. It's a very sneaky trick, really, because when they ask you a question, if you ask one back, now you've batted the ball back into their court. Yes, exactly. This is why they do it, yeah? They don't get pinned down with anything because they're always asking you the question back. So that, it the buck doesn't stop with them, yeah? So it's a very difficult game to play, yeah? But if you get it right, it's really very powerful, yeah? But you can be caught out. Can be easily caught out. And it's no accident they're playing that on a tennis court, because that's the game. Return the ball. Yeah? If you make a statement, you fumble the ball. Yeah, you lose a point. Okay? So, very powerful, but again, it's a tricky skill to master. When I gave this talk, I gave a version of this talk to homeschoolers, 9 to 14-year-olds. And after we finished that lesson, they were all out in the garden going, am I obliged to do that? Yes, you are. And they're playing questions. So it's really great to see. So they picked it up straight away. So the third way to agree is consent implied by your actions. Okay, so answering a stranger's questions is giving them authority to ask you or demand answers from you and expect you to answer them. Okay? So it's like a stranger coming up to you and saying, what are your bank details? So what would you say? You'd say, well, who are you? Yeah, I thought you said something rude. So yes, the stranger asking you questions and you answering them is literally giving your authority away to that stranger. Right? If a policeman says, don't stand over there, and you just march over there, well, now you've given that policeman authority over you to demand or command you to do things, and expect you're going to follow his commands. As soon as you follow his commands, he's got authority over you. Yeah? Consent implied by your actions. So, one way to get around that is, am I obliged to stand over there, officer? Now the ball's in his court. Okay? Another way is that an order or is that a request? Well, if it's a request, then, you can politely decline the request. But if it's an order, well, orders are chargeable. Okay? So what happens if you go to McDonald's and you order a cheeseburger? What comes next? You pay. Who sets the price? McDonald's does. So if somebody orders you to do something, right, charge them. You don't work for free, do you? Well, no, if somebody orders you to do something, right, you can charge them and you set the price. So, like if you go to McDonald's and you say, I'd like a cheeseburger, please. Oh, cheeseburger's 25 quid. Do you still want a cheeseburger? Now it's down to you. Do you want a cheeseburger? It's going to cost you 25 quid. The choice is yours. So, there's a video on my channel where I get stopped by the police. And the policeman wants me to get out of the car. So I say to him, well, I'm happy to get out of the car, officer, but I don't work for free. If you want me to get out of the car, it's going to cost you £20,000. Do you still want me to get out of the car? He said, yes. I said, hold on a sec. And I wrote out an invoice. And he signed it on camera. So now, right, and then I got out of the car. But now, I didn't do this, and maybe we'll get into it why a little later, but now I can go to court and go, 1 million people have watched me, because 1 million people have watched this video by now. 1 million people have watched me make this man an offer. He accepted the offer. I performed. He hasn't paid. Open and shut case. Not a leg to stand on. I didn't do that. And because the other thing I was going to do was I was going to get what's known as a commercial lien on Hampshire police, which meant that I could, when I get it matured, I could go to Hampshire and get goods to the value of. I set my lien at £50,000. But I didn't do it. But if I was going to do that, what I was going to do was go to Hampshire and start clamping police cars. And I had a friend with a removals company. He's going to go and collect those clamped cars and line them up outside my house so I can, on my YouTube video, go. But, if I did that and took the cops to court, I'd have every single policeman in the country after me. So there were other things I needed to do, so I let it go. But anyway, the point is that, as I said, you can charge. If somebody's ordering you to do something, you can charge them and you can set the price for it. Yeah? So even if you write your documents to whoever, make sure you have a fee schedule for your time, your effort, and your expenses, or anything you can think of. Inconvenience fee, anything you think of. But your time is valuable, and anyone expecting you to service an order for free, well, that's blackmail, that's fraud, that's business malpractice. Okay. So there's something called, still on the topic of consent implied by your actions. There's a type of contract called an adhesion contract. Now you might be familiar with it when you go and park your car in a car park. Okay? Somewhere in that car park, it says, notice, by parking in this car park, you agree to the following fees. And then they lay out their fee schedule. Okay? And that contract is deemed to be activated as soon as you park your car in that car park. So, consent implied by your actions. Okay? Well, the way you can get out of that is you put your own notice on your car. Okay? And this is a notice that's in my car right now. Okay? It says, and I'll summarise. It says this is to anyone who's a DVLA, police, or parking attendants, whatever. It's aimed at. It says you agree to pay £250 for each notice that is attached or issued to this car. You agree to pay £125 for each image or photograph that you take of this car. You agree, if you collect this car, you agree to pay £500 per hour or portion thereof until the claim is removed. If you move, relocate or tow this car, you thereby agree to pay £750 per hour. Okay? So you're using, the power they're using against you, you're using against them.
Has it worked? Your car? Has it worked?
Sorry?
Has it worked? Have you used it?
Oh yes, yes. I had this in my car for a good couple of years. One time I parked, me and my friends went to a party. I parked in the street, and we didn't know it was residents only. Came out in the morning, tickets on all the cars except mine. And there was one time that they did actually put a parking ticket on my car, and it was for 50 quid. So I wrote back to them and said, thank you for your parking charge. Your parking attendant would have noticed that I had a notice in my window. My charges for your notice are £250. Send me the £250 and I'll send you your £50 back. I never heard from them again. So yes, I didn't bring my car today, but I would have said it was outside. It's in my window at the moment, and yeah, people have noticed it as well. People notice it and come up and say, "Oh, I just noticed your window is brilliant," you know. But it works, yeah. So hopefully, if I put out the slides for this, you'll be able to get it.
Yes, please.
Have you deregistered?
Sorry.
In that case, have you deregistered your car?
No, I didn't. You don't have to deregister your car to do that. What you're doing there is playing them at their own game. Yeah. The power they have to make an adhesion contract is the same power you have to make an adhesion contract. Yeah. Plus these companies, they're all businesses. They're all businesses doing business with you, so you can do business with them. You've got exactly the same power as they have. So use it. Yeah? So the fourth way to agree, okay, is called tacit acquiescence. That means agreement by your silence. You have the right to remain silent, okay? But if somebody makes you an offer and you remain silent, then that offer is deemed to be accepted. Okay? He who is silent consents. That's a maxim in law. So you'll find that judges use this trick all the time. Okay? When you go to court and the judge makes a pronouncement like, "I'm going to fine you £500," right? He will pause. And he will try and cover up that pause by shuffling paper or looking around for somebody in the court or something. But he's giving you a pause. And in that pause, you're supposed to object. And if you don't object in that narrow window he gives you, well then you've accepted that pronouncement. Your silence means consent. Now there was a woman who went to court, and that happened to her. The judge said, "Well, I'm going to fine you £500." And immediately she said, "I'm not going to pay that. I'm not going to do it." And the judge leaned forward and said, "Well, what about £250? Because it's an offer, okay? And she didn't accept it. Governments use that as well. Use this trick as well. So when they made like mask, when they said a mask mandate on public transport, they always said, or well, they always say, okay, from the 25th of March, there's going to be a mask mandate. They don't say, "Oh, right, from today, there's masks, got to wear masks." No, they always put it in the future. And that time is your moment to object. And if you don't object, righto, you want the mask mandate then, and they bring it in. Okay? But they always give you that time to object. And if you remain silent, then it's deemed that you've accepted it. Okay? They also used to do it with council tax. Every year, around about March, they put like a double-page spread in the local paper. This is what we're going to do with your council tax. It's an offer. Do you want to pay council tax so we can do this with it? And if nobody objects, then okay, righty-ho, you're going to get council tax. So yeah, there are 4 ways you can agree to contracts. As I said, contracts are everywhere, and half the time you don't know you're getting into them. Right, so what time is that? Ooh, I've got to hurry up. Okay, so I'm going to whiz through this one. Driving and travelling, okay? As I said, I've said this before actually, the driving licence contract and we waive our right to travel for the benefit privilege of being a driver. So the driving licence fails on all four elements of the contract. So the driving licence isn't enforceable. And one of the things you do in common law is you dissect the English grammar because we've never been taught grammar properly. Okay? So, the Road Traffic Act defines a motor vehicle as a mechanically propelled vehicle, right, adapted or intended for use on the road. What it is, it uses, well, first of all, a motor vehicle and a vehicle are two different things. Because in the definition motor vehicle, it says vehicle. So there are two different things. But this definition uses the indefinite article "a," meaning that a motor vehicle is only one type of mechanically propelled vehicle. I hope you're following me with this. Yeah? So let's define an apple as a round red fruit. So are these apples? No, they're not. It means an apple is just one type of round red fruit. Yeah? So, not all of these mechanically propelled vehicles are motor vehicles. So let's see, what is a motor vehicle? So this is the legal definition of a motor vehicle. And this is how you've got to use Black's Law Dictionary, and this is how tricky they make it. Okay, so again, it's defined, a motor vehicle is defined as a mechanically propelled vehicle adapted or intended for use on the road. Or what's a vehicle? Includes every description of carriage or other artificial contrivance used or capable of being used as a means of transportation on land. Well, what's a carriage? Carriage, a vehicle used for transportation of persons, either for pleasure or business. Transportation, what's that? The removal of goods or persons from one place to another by a carrier. What's a carrier? Carrier, one who undertakes to transport persons or property from place to place by means of conveyance and with or without compensation. It's starting to sound a bit commercial, isn't it? Yeah. So what's an undertaking? A promise, engagement or stipulation, each of the promises made by parties to a contract. So, what's a motor vehicle? It's every description of mechanically propelled artificial contrivance adapted or intended for use on the road, used or capable of being used as a means of removing goods or persons from one place to another by one who has promised, contracted, or been engaged to transport persons or property from place to place with or without compensation. So that means a taxi driver is a driver. A bus driver is a driver. Yeah? So, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So a bus is a motor vehicle because it fits that definition. A taxi is a vehicle because it fits that definition. Yeah? Your car, when you get in it to go to Tesco's, does it fit that definition? No, it doesn't. Your car is not a motor vehicle. Okay? Just like a butter knife is not a deadly weapon. Okay? It's a butter knife. But if I were to grab that butter knife and stab somebody in the eye with it, now it's a deadly weapon. It's how it's being used that defines what it is. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. So, what's the driver? Okay? One who is employed to conduct or operate a carriage. Okay. Conductor, a lessee or person who hires the services of another, a hirer, a person hired to make specific work. What's a conductor? A person who engages to perform the piece of work for another at a stated price. Operative, a workman, a labouring man. So to drive means to commercially operate a vehicle used for transporting passengers or property for hire. So again, a taxi driver is a driver, a bus driver is a driver, a coach driver is a driver, a lorry driver is a driver. But are you a driver? No, you're not. And this is how they trick us. By, we all use the word, yes, we're driving down the shops. Right? We're not. We're just travelling. Literally travelling. As soon as you admit to being a driver, Now you become one of these strawmen, one of these legal fictions. Okay? So you can't read this, but this is a Freedom of Information request that went out to the DVLA, and it says, and I know you can't read it here, but it says, I acknowledge that the common law of right to travel still exists. Full stop. Okay? The rest of this is bullshit word magic to make you believe that you still need tax, MOT, insurance and all that. You know, it talks about vehicles and drivers. And we're not talking about drivers, we're talking about right to travel. Okay? But they always use this word magic to try and steer you back to their way of thinking. And as I said, there are a group of people who already know all this and they don't buy into all this bullshit. And it's travellers. They don't have tax, MOT, insurance or driving licences. But the police don't touch them because they know they're travelling. We don't. So just a final thing on this topic. This is, again, a letter that's sent to an MP. And it says, thank you for contacting me about driving licences. There is no legal requirement for a driving licence in the United Kingdom. Right there, from the horse's mouth. So I'm going to quickly move on to the police force. First thing to know about the police force is they're a company. They're a registered company doing business for profit. They make profit from every time they fine you, every time you go to prison, every time they do any action on you, they get money. Okay? And I just got Essex Police in there, and literally I've got all the branches. I think I found the one in Basildon is one of the branches of the headquarters that are in Chelmsford. Okay? So, as I said before, we used to have constables who were there to serve and protect us and uphold the common law. And very, very slowly they got morphed into these police officers, enforcing statutes illegally. But the thing is, underneath this guy's uniform is this guy. Because they all swear the same constable's oath. And this is constable's oath. And in it says things like upholding fundamental human rights and prevent all offences against people and property. It's these guys, just like you, that are causing all these offences against people and their property. Yeah? So here's a gang of 6 police officers honouring their solemn oath to serve and protect. When it moves around again, watch the other woman in this and watch what she's doing. Watch what she's doing. She's grabbing the crutch out of the guy's hands. It was like... beating out. This is, I don't think this is in this country, this is some other country, but it doesn't matter because we're seeing this everywhere now. If you've been to a protest, what you'll see is a couple of guys beating up somebody in the middle and you've got a ring of policemen going, stay back, stay back! Yeah? I can't watch this too much anyway.
Unless you're chucking a statue in the river.
Yeah. Unless you're doing something that the system likes. So the thing about the police is that they have the same powers and duties that you have. Okay? You have the power of arrest. Just because they call it citizen's arrest doesn't make it any different from what the police can do. Okay? And also you have a duty as a sovereign being that if there is a crime being committed right in front of you, it is your duty to do to the best of your ability to go and stop that crime. Okay, that is our duty. The only difference between us and the police is that we pay them to do that full time. Okay? No difference. They haven't got any power over you unless you commit a crime, of course. I should put that before all of these. Unless you've committed a crime, they've got no power over you whatsoever. That's all at all. Yeah? They have no jurisdiction over civil matters. Okay, so anything that isn't a crime, they've got no jurisdiction over. They can't do anything about. Okay?
You're referring to a crime in law or law that is more common law?
Well, law is common law. So a crime, again, requires an injured party. If there's no injured party, there's no crime. Yeah? If there's no crime, police can't get involved. They do get involved. Why do they get involved? Because all of us believe they can. Well, not all of us, the muggles out there who watch television. Right? There's a reason why there's so many crime and TV and police shows on TV, so that you believe that they can do all sorts of things they actually can't. Yeah? So the only reason they think they can is because the public opinion believes that they can. Yeah? So, in order to do anything to you, they need to identify you first. If you commit a crime, they don't need to identify you, they can just grab you and haul you off. But if it's a civil matter, well, they need to identify you to make you the same as one of those legal fictions. Now they can have power over you. And for that, to identify you, they need your name, date of birth, and address. Okay? So when you start talking to a copper, they don't really they don't want to be your friend. Okay? They don't care really, whether you're having a nice day or not. Yeah? They're trying to get authority over you. They're trying to get you to confess to something. They're trying to get you to argue, because there's a place for arguments. They call that court. Yeah? They're trying to actually fill their quota, because they're on a quota system. Yeah? They've got to have so many arrests and interactions, otherwise their jobs are in peril. So if they arrest you, best thing to do, again, if they arrest you and you haven't committed a crime, well, they're trying to get you on a civil matter, which they can't do. So the best thing you can do is remain silent. Don't say anything. The most they can do is hold you for 24 hours, 23 hours and 59 minutes. Yeah? Because arrest without charge, which is what you'll end up being in. So if you got hauled away during a protest, likelihood is you get released without charge. Well, arrest without charge is assault and false imprisonment. Okay, you can go after them for that. Yeah? Including this thing called misconduct in public office, which has teeth, because it gives the sentence is a life sentence for anyone who breaks that. Okay? Got real teeth. So, do you need to give your details? No, you don't. When, remember, if you haven't committed a crime, no power over you whatsoever. Yeah? Again, they're trying to get information, they're trying to identify you so they can do something to you. Right? So, you have the right to remain silent. Okay? So if they try and arrest you for not giving your details, what's the first line of the police caution? Does anyone remember? So, in other words, you have the right to remain silent. So how can you be arrested for exercising your right to remain silent if the first words of the arrest are, you've got the right to remain silent? It's a nonsense. Yeah? But unless you point that out to them, right, well, they'll just go ahead and arrest you for it. Okay? Right, so they have a flow chart they have to follow. Right? So it's the 4 E's. Engage, explain, encourage, and enforce. Now they can't jump straight to enforce. They have to go through each step. Okay? So, hello sir, how are you today?
Good, thank you.
Right, I can tick off engage. Right? I've engaged with it. Okay? Well, I'm here to tell you about the Coronavirus Act. You're not allowed to be in a place with more than 2 people. Well, you don't even have to answer or say anything, because now I've explained to you. Yeah? Well, I suggest you go home now, because otherwise I might be forced to arrest you. Now, I've encouraged you. Now, if you don't go, now I can jump to, enforce. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right, so I've got a little video here. I'm not going to, I guess I have to preface it a bit. I went to a stand in a park one day, and I went into a cafe that's on the park, and I didn't have a mask on. I had a little altercation, nothing major, just a back and forth chat, and I refused to go for a little while. But eventually I said to me, okay, I'll leave you to it. I went back and I sat on the grass. A few minutes later, the police turned up because he called the police on me, and 4 policemen came out. So they didn't just want to chat to me, they were after an arrest, because they don't send 4 people out just to have a chat. So it's a bit noisy to start with, but after it calms down a little bit, you'll hear what I'm saying to the police officers. So I'm sitting on the grass here. Right here looking for a while. So I'm saying Rice versus Connolly, 1966. Everybody else joins in, this is pretty cool. 2 more coppers coming up here. Right, so you see there, they're going to their huddle, and eventually all they just wandered off, yeah, because literally they couldn't do anything. I wouldn't let them get past engage, yeah. Every time they opened their mouth, they said, "Sir, I Rice versus Connolly, 1966." Must have said it about 30 times, right? And literally, if I didn't know what I was doing, I'd have been arrested that day, right? Because, you know, if you don't know, you end up falling into their trap, just like I did with David just a minute ago. Yeah? You end up falling in their trap, and they presume they have the right to do what they do. So Rice versus Connolly is a bit of case law that it was ruled, while there may be a moral duty to speak to police, there is no legal one. Okay? You do not have to speak to police. If you've not committed a crime, you don't have to talk to them. And when you talk to them, they are trying to get evidence against you. So when you open your mouth, you're likely to convict yourself. Okay, so you can just turn your back on them. You can just walk off. If they're persistent, they'll follow you. But yes, you don't have to talk to them at all. So can they fine you or seize your property? Well, it turns out they can't. Yeah? We have 2 pieces of what known as constitutional law. Okay? The British Constitution. The Magna Carta 1215, Article 39, basically says no free man is to be arrested or imprisoned or deceased, that means dispossessed, or outlawed, exiled, or in any way ruined, except by lawful judgment of his peers and by law of the land. They said House of Laws of England refers to the Magna Carta as a founding document of the British Constitution. So it's not out of date, it's not repealed, it is a founding document of our Constitution. Another part of our Constitution is the Bill of Rights Act 1689. And it says, all grants and promises of fines and forfeitures of a particular person before conviction are legal and void. Yeah? So what the police, when they fine you or take your property away from you, seize, I like to use the word seize, it just sounds a bit different from thief. Yeah? When they seize your property, yeah, they can't do it. What they're doing is denying you due process of law. Okay? In this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. So how can you punish an innocent person? So if you're fining somebody or taking their property, you're fining or stealing from an innocent person. Until they're convicted, they're still innocent. So yeah, they've got no right to do either. Okay? And I'm sick of seeing things like this. I'm seeing this all over Facebook as well. Police departments proudly saying how they've seized somebody's car because they've not paid tax and stuff like that. Okay? They can't do it. I sent a freedom of information request to Greater Manchester Police, saying, asking them, what is the lawful basis of your seizures? They sent me a whole stack of legislation to look at. It took me 3 days to look through it. And what I found out was they have no lawful basis of seizing property. What they do is they convince you that they have the power to do that. They get you out of the car, and once you're out of the car, they'll say, okay, we can take you wherever you want to go, to the station, to give you a travel document or whatever, get the hell out of here. And then they come back to the car and go, oh look, an abandoned car. We'll move that for safety. And then they salvage that car. That's it. It's the law of the sea. Can you be detained by police? Well, no, they can't lawfully detain you at all. So detention is false imprisonment. Yeah? And even a threat of arrest is assault. If they seize you, I say we're going to arrest you and they seize you and grab you, that's battery. So if they threaten to arrest you and seize you, that's assault and battery. And so the best way around it is to put them into a double bind. Okay? Am I under arrest? Well, no, you're not. Oh, that means I'm free to go, yeah? No, you're not. Oh, so I must be under arrest. No, you're not. Oh, so I'm free to go, am I? No, you're not. Oh, so I must be under arrest. So eventually they get bored and I'll let you go. So dealing with police. First of all, don't be intimidated by TV shows. As I said, that's what they're there for. So make you intimidated. Yeah? Don't be intimidated by the uniform. The uniform is designed to make you afraid. Yeah? The blue lights are there to make you afraid. Yeah? Don't care how brave you are, how much knowledge you have. If you're driving, you see those blue lights behind you, you get a stab of fear. Is it me? What have I done? Yeah? Same thing when 2 of these fluorescent idiots come towards you, all glowing. Yeah? The first thought is, are they coming for me? What have I done? Yeah? It's designed to put you off your game, essentially. So again, remember, if you're not committing a crime, they've got no power over you. They need something called reasonable articulable suspicion. If they want to search you, for instance, they need a reasonable reason. They can't say, well, I don't like the way you look, or I don't think you should be here. It's not reasonable. They have to have a reasonable suspicion. They have to be able to articulate it properly. They need you to give them authority, your authority. They need you to answer their questions. They need you to argue. They need you to confess. If you don't do any of that, they've got nothing. Okay? Vice versa economy is a good way. Saying I don't answer questions, it's a good way, but what they'll do is they'll continue to ask you questions and eventually you'll slip up. And then you've validated what you said earlier on. So, you've got to be very wary. Okay? So, best not say anything at all to police. But if you do, stay calm but assertive. In this country, we're taught to be, what's the word? Polite, subserviently polite. Subserviently polite. So people start conversations with, sorry, or excuse me, I teach peace constables, and when we do the role plays, there's a policeman talking to a victim, and somehow the peace constables got to get involved, and they often go, sorry, or excuse me. Yeah, that's being subservient. It's giving power away to whoever you're talking to. And so you've got to learn to be calm yet assertive. So this is what asserting yourself looks like.
Yeah, it wasn't on the road, it was on the driveway, it was on the pathway. Yeah. And I put it in my car. Yeah. I own the bike.
Okay, I appreciate you said that.
Yeah.
I just want proof that you...
I don't have to show you proof, okay? How about that? Do I lawfully have to show you proof that I purchased that bike? Answer the question, be very, very careful about what comes out of your mouth. do I legally have to show you proof that I bought that bike? Answer the question. Would you like me to answer it for you? The answer is no, I don't. So I'm going to say to you again, I bought the bike, it's going to stay in my car until I decide to take it out. Now you're no longer required. Goodbye. And how can you tell me I'm not your boss? Everybody around here pays taxes your boss. You're going to tell me that he's throwing over to the Queen? Yeah? And when's the last time Britain had a monarchy, mate? When's the last time we were governed by a parliament? About your crown servant. You are a public servant. You're here to serve the public. You're here to uphold the law. You're here to honour your oath. Act with integrity, impartiality. Okay? You're not doing that right now. I suggest you start asserting yourself in a bit of a better way, Constable. I'm not taking the bike out of my car. It's mine. I bought it. I put it in the car. No, listen. You have no reason. You're frustrating me because you're speaking to me when I haven't committed a crime. Now, if I was to slip you up on the law, if I was to slip you up on the law, you would have been abusing my rights right now. Listen, Article 2, 10 or 8, take your pick. Why are you asking me about my property? What's in your pockets, mate? Show me what's in your pockets. Why are you asking about my private property? Why are you going to look to me back? Listen, hold on a second. Listen to me a second, right? I need a search record. Who are you searching my car? How do you know the bike's in there? How do you know the bike is in my car? Because you looked in, yeah? That's a search. So I want the search record, please. I want a copy of the search record. And I want the reasons for the search also. I know the law. Did you just say my name? Yeah, don't do that again.
Now that is asserting yourself, yeah? You see how he's taking his power back as the sovereign being, yeah? The sovereign being way above the police, okay? The police are our servants. He was treating them as his servant. This is how it should be. You know, we shouldn't be cowering in fear when we see a copper and he starts talking to us. Because if you haven't done anything wrong, he's below you. Okay? Yeah, that was very, very powerful. Someone was going to say that. I can't remember what it is now, but we've gone. Okay, so moving on to just a quick one about these COVID-19 regulations. Yeah. So have you seen any shops around here that don't accept cash? Right? Well, you know what? There's two things about that. The Bill of Exchange Act 1882 says that if you make an offer of payment and that offer is refused, well, the debt's extinguished. So if you offer and they say, no, we don't accept that, okay, thank you anyway. Right? Because that's what it says in the Bill of Exchange Act 1882. Okay? But if you don't want to get that kind of what's what I'm looking for? Confrontation. That's it. You can always just leave the money, the actual money, on the counter and walk out. Yeah, because you've paid for it. It's not your problem that they're not accepting it. You've paid for it. You've done your part. Okay. Don't go along with it just because they say something. This is a problem we have because as people who don't know they're sovereign beings, the people less than us tell us what to do and we do it. Right? They say, we don't accept cash. Well, sorry, I've got cash. Walk out.
Do they have the right to take it off sale?
Well, they can't do it. If you pick something up, you go to the counter and you go to pay for it, oh, we don't accept cash. There's the cash, walk out with it. They can't say you stole it.
Aren't they're not engaging in a contract?
Sorry?
They're not engaging in a contract.
What do you mean they're not engaging in a contract?
If they're not taking your money, they're not engaging in a contract.
Well, they've superseded the contract because I said if you make an offer of payment, right, and they refuse that payment, then
their offer of contract is the price on the
yeah. Yes, and you're making a payment with the legal tender, so if they don't accept it, that's their lookout. But again, if you don't want that confrontation and having the police call to say you've stolen, well, you just leave the money on the side.
So how does it stand if they've got it on their window or their door? We do not accept cash, and you go in.
So
Okay.
it's still legal. It's still legal tender. They're supposed to accept it. Just because they had changed their policy, yeah. It's the same with the mask mandates. When Morrison's changed their policy, well, that goes against the law. Your policy doesn't matter to me. Yeah. When they do lockdowns, well, you have a document from the Queen, a permit from the Queen that says you can go wherever you want. Yeah? On that page, on the front page, it says, Her Britannic Majesty Secretary of State requests and requires in the name of Her Majesty to all those who may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance and afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. Does it say anything about ports or different countries? No, it doesn't. It's a letter from the Queen to her employees to let you go, to leave you alone. And people have used that successfully. So when there's employees are talking about you have to have the jab, otherwise you'll lose your job. Well, your contracted employment doesn't specify that your employer can force you to undergo a medical intervention on demand. It doesn't say that in your contract. Yeah? Your employer cannot unilaterally change your contract. You need to sign off on it. Okay? And sometimes what they do is they sack you and take you on under another contract, and I'll put that in there. But until they do that, you're working on a contract. Okay? And if they sack you on the basis that you didn't take a vaccine and it's not in your contract, well, then you can sue them for breach of contract. Okay? So again, they make these mandates, yeah, and 9 out of 10 people go, okay then, well, I have to. But you've got your protection right there, you've just forgotten you've got it. Also, the government are not a party to your contract. So the government can't impose anything on your contract because they're not a party to it. If they impose a vaccine mandate, that renders them liable to breach contract. It says most people know already that forced or coerced mandated vaccinations are a violation of the Nuremberg Code. And this came out just recently. Hammersmith Police confirmed to a group of lawyers and Mark Sexton, who's an ex-policeman, that anyone sacked or been threatened with a sack in order to coerce them into taking a jab is a victim of blackmail. So it's been confirmed by the police now. So don't quit. If you're under threat of losing your job over not taking a vaccine, don't quit. Let them sack you, and then go after them, and you'll win that case. Okay? You get. Sorry.
Is that why IKEA has refused to give sick pay to those knocked out? They're getting around it.
They're trying all sorts of ways to get around it, but this actually just underlines the point that they're actually in deep trouble by trying to force people to get this jab. So they're sort of wriggling around it, So there's also this is a notice of conditional acceptance. Now I wrote a book back in 2014, and the section on vaccines, I had this notice. So this came straight out of my book, and I just added to it. So conditional acceptance is basically saying I'm happy to accept the jab on condition that you supply me with the following information. And you just ask several questions, I've got mine there, that they should be able to give you in all good conscience. They should be able to give you the answers in all good conscience, but they can't because they don't exist. So it leaves you in a stalemate position, where you said, I'm happy to accept it, but the ball's in your court. You just give me this information, such as proof that the legal status of the vaccine is not experimental. They can't prove that, right? Because it is, right? At least one double-blind placebo-controlled study that proves the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. Well, they should be able to give you that, shouldn't they? But they can't because it doesn't exist. So you've got all these questions that do exactly the same thing. Yeah? They should be able to give these answers to you in all good conscience, but they can't because there's no such thing. Okay? Leaves you in a stalemate position where they can't proceed because they need to give you these answers first, and you've already accepted, so you can't be taken to court or anything because you've accepted it. Along with this comes a liability statement that you get when you say, well, I also need you, because I'm wrong, I also need, you're required to return the enclosed liability statement. And that liability statement is saying that I, whoever is wanting to give you the jab, in this case it's a doctor, I've examined the patient and the patient does not have any of the following conditions, and there's all the conditions that you're likely to get if you get the jab. I therefore accept full responsibility and full commercial liability should the patient experience anaphylactic shock, autoimmunity issues, or subsequently be diagnosed with any of the above conditions as a result of receiving this vaccine. Nobody is going to sign that. Nobody is going to take responsibility for their actions. Right? Again, it leaves you in a stalemate position, and then you can't, or they can't proceed. So I'm aware of the time. How much time have I got?
20 minutes?
Oh, 20 minutes is all. Bloody hell. I might have to skip council tax. I'm sorry. No. The thing is, this is part of the 8-hour thing, and this is the one that I have to skip if I'm running out of time. So sorry, I have to get you back for the 8-hour one, yeah? Sorry about this. We're going to skip all these. I know it's painful. Give a summary. Don't pay it. No, it's a big topic, so I'm really sorry. It's just I haven't got time, and the problem is every time I find new information, I just chuck it in there and I forget about the time and stuff. So.
Is it on your website?
Some of it is, but not all of it. I don't have time to put
Did you say you were going to share this?
Well, if somebody wants to organise something, I'm happy to do. It's an 8-hour one, all day, 9 to 5. There will be breaks. I'm not just talking all for 8 hours, but yes, I go through everything, and you'll come away knowing how to deal with all this stuff. Okay, so bailiffs and decorators. Okay, again, I'm going to whiz right through this. Again, TV shows give you the illusion that they've got power. Okay, that's why they're there. And half of the scenarios on these shows are crisis actors, pretending that they can do these things. Okay, they've got no power whatsoever unless you give it to them. Just like a stranger coming up to you and saying, "You owe me a tenner. Pay up." So what do you say?
I'm saying it costs you twice, Nick.
Yeah, so you say, "No, who the hell are you? I don't owe you anything." Yeah. But this is exactly who they are. What they've done, I won't say that. They also say they've got a warrant. They always say they've got a warrant. Okay? Now, a warrant has certain things that you should look out for. One of them is a signature from a judge. And these warrants don't ever have a signature on it because nobody wants to take responsibility for it. Okay? Has to be a wet signature, yes, an actual signature. Also, it has to have a court seal. Now, this is a court seal. You'll hardly ever see a proper court seal. This is just a stamp, a rubber stamp. Okay? One that I saw had a faker version of a crown in it, and it just said "the court" on it. Like I was going to be fooled by it. Yeah? So you will never ever see one of these because courts hardly ever do these things. So when you're dealing with debt collector, they can only come in if you open the door to them. Because when you open the door to them, you're implying you're letting them in. By opening that door, you're just making that implication. and they're seizing on that implication. Okay? That's how they can stick their foot in the door. The warrant that they say that they have, which is essentially a blank piece of paper, right? If they're saying it's from a court, that makes them liable to the County Courts Act 1984, section 135, falsely pretending to act under the authority of the court. That's 7 years in prison. You tell them that, they hide that warrant very quickly. Yeah? So the thing about these debt collectors, they have actually just bought your debt. They've gone to the bank and they've said, any outstanding debts you've got? And I'll say, I'm going to pick on you because you're right in front of me. Yeah, oh, there's Davey, he's got £1,000 he owes. And the debt collectors will go, okay, we'll buy that for a tenner. And he says, okay. So now the debt collector goes to Davey and says, you better pay up or we're going to threaten him and whatever. Because it's very lucrative. They've paid out a tenner and they potentially can get 990 plus whatever fees they want to add to it as well for a tenner. Okay? So all they did was bought the debt. The thing about that is, because the bank accepted a tenner for 1,000, that means that debt's paid off. So one of the things you can say is, thank you, debt collectors, for paying off my debt. You should have come to me first to see if I'd pay you back. But you didn't, so I'm not. Yeah? Because that's what they've done. They're not acting as agents for the bank or anything. They've just bought your debt from you. Or from them. So, yes, you don't have a contract with them. They're just a company that you don't know. Yeah, they've just come up and said, oh, you owe us money now. Okay? You don't. They have no proof of agency. They're pretending they're agents for the bank. They're not. They just bought the debt. Okay? So do not contract with them. So one of the things you can do is by your door, you can put a notice of removal of implied access. As I said, when you open the door to them, you're implying you're letting them in. You can explicitly remove that implication by this notice that you put by your door, or better still, on your front gate, so even before they get to the front door. And this one says, I hereby give notice that the implied right of access to the property known as whatever has been removed in respect to the following, and these are all the people that this applies to: bailiffs, police, whatever. And you also give a fee schedule saying that if you violate this, right, the fine is £10,000. Okay? Knocking on the door or pushing the bell button will be deemed to mean that you agree to the terms and conditions of that. So it's an adhesion contract, take it or leave it. Yeah? The other thing you can do is just put private by appointment only. Okay? Just put that on beside the front door. If they want to make an appointment, well, they cost £3,000. They still want to make an appointment, you know? So again, they're companies doing business with you, so you can do business with them. Okay? So sometimes you get debt collectors being held by the police. Have you seen that? Yeah? So it turns out they're not allowed to do that. Yeah, debt collection is a civil matter. Police can't get involved. So if you see police helping a debt collector, well now they're liable to Section 26 of the Criminal Justice and Courts Act. Abuse of position by a police constable causing another to suffer loss for the benefit of a third party. Yeah? So as soon as the police start helping the bailiff, you can say, hang on, that sounds like you're helping them. You know that makes you liable for this statute. They soon back off. They have to, yeah? Because it carries a 14-year prison sentence, which again has teeth. So this turns out to be the very first debt collector's letter that I ever sent, because when I was first trying to figure out how to do this common law stuff, this is the first thing I ever did. So I had a debt for $39. So I thought, if it goes horribly wrong, you know, I'll still be able to survive. So it's very simple. It says, here's something I'm receiving your account statement for such and such. I admit to being somewhat confused because I don't have any record of owning an account with you. meaning I don't know who the hell you are. Yeah? This may be because of some error on my part, in which case I'd be happy to accept and discharge the £39.90 that you claim I owe you. However, in order to verify this debt, please provide me with a copy of the lawful two-party contract signed both by myself and a representative of GEM Recovery Systems that forms the basis of the obligation to pay the amount claimed. Please deliver this verification within 7 days. Otherwise, failure to do so will comprise tacit proof that GEM Recovery Systems is unable to verify and validate the alleged debt. Saying, prove to me there's a debt. And if you can't, bugger off. And that's it. I never heard from them again. It's a very simple letter. This is my first one. It was a pretty crap letter, but it worked. Yeah? So, again, I'm rushing ahead. Dealing with banks, okay? So, when a bank lends money to you, where does the money come from? It comes from you. Yeah? It's legalised bank fraud. Yeah? You've been led to believe that banks have money. They don't. Okay? Banks create credit from your promise to pay. Right? So when you sign a loan agreement, right, on that loan agreement it's got an amount, it's got a date which you're supposedly to pay it back, and now it's got your signature on it. So now you've created a promissory note. Look in your wallet or your back pocket. Those pieces of paper are promissory notes. That's why it says, I promise to pay the bearer. It's just a promissory note. And you have you have the power to create your own ones. Okay, but when you sign that loan agreement, you create a promissory note. All the bank does is take that note and cashes it. They take that note and they go tap, 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 and now you apparently have £10,000 or whatever. But it's £10,000 of credit in their banking system. Yeah? It's not real. They gave you nothing. Okay, it's just an illusion. Okay. So the other thing they do is they take that loan agreement, which is now a valuable security, because it's now worth 3 times the face value with interest. Okay, and they sell it on the securities market. So they've already sold that loan agreement. That loan agreement is the only evidence that there's a loan. So if you go back to them and say, can you show me the evidence that there's a loan between that I have to pay you? They can't give it to you. It's gone. So there is no loan. Right? So the proof of it is in the Bank of England's quarterly bulletin. It says, banks extend credit by simply increasing the borrowing customer's current account. That's it. That's how they create the money. They just type it in. That's it. And then you work your ass off for the next 10 years or something, trying to pay it back. Trying to pay this back. Yeah? Banks extend credit by creating money. That's it. But there's a further swindle to this. When the bank creates money, they only create the principal, they don't create the interest. So let's illustrate this. Imagine there's no money in the world, okay? And I go to a bank and I borrow £1,000. Okay? I spend that £1,000 into the world. And now there's a pile of money in the world, okay, £1,000. But I owe the bank £1,200 with interest. Hang on, there's only £1,000 in the world. Where am I going to get that £1,200 from? Now let's imagine that Davy's also borrowed £1,000 from the bank, and now he spends it into the world. Okay? Now there's £2,000 in the world. Now imagine I'm a very savvy businessman, and I manage to get my £1,200, and I pay back my loan. Okay? Now how can David pay back his £1,200? Because there's only £800 left in the world. David's not going to be able to pay his loan off. He's going to have his house taken from him. That's how the game is. Okay? It's a rigged game. Right? It's like a game of musical chairs. Right? And it's so big that nobody can see it in operation. But Whenever anybody pays off their loan, somebody loses a share. And that's the big game, okay? And you can see it in this game. It's a game that nobody ever finishes. Okay? The reason nobody ever finishes it because we all think the game ends when the last person still has money left. But that's not the end of the game. What would happen if that person carried on playing? What would happen? He'll lose. The bank will end up with all the money. Yeah? The game is rigged, so the bank always wins. And that's the system we're in. The bank always wins. Okay? And it's illustrated in this game, but we don't see it because we never finish the game. Yeah? So here's a letter for the bank. You've got a loan, okay? So, dear Mr. Thief, I'm currently performing an audit of my financial obligations as I found I might be the victim of fraud and financial malfeasance. And while I'm sure that such a reputable company as yours would not be a party to such misdeeds, I nonetheless feel I must be rigorous in my investigation into this matter. I agree to settle any financial obligation I might lawfully owe on condition that I receive the following documentation from you. Validation of thieving banks valuable consideration pertaining to the alleged debt in the form of actual accounting of its losses. But the bank didn't lose anything. It literally just typed in a value into your bank account. Didn't lose a thing. So there is no accounting of losses. Okay? Verification of your claim against me in a sworn affidavit or hand-signed invoice in accordance with the Bill of Exchange Act. Nobody is going to sign their name to this fraud. Okay? So they can't give that either. A copy of the contract signed by both parties, therefore binding both parties. Whose signature appears on that loan agreement? Just yours. They did claim at one point, they did claim that, you know when you go for a mortgage and you fill in that mortgage form, the lawyer puts an X, he goes, sign here, here and here. Well, they claim that X was their signature. So yeah, that's them trying to get out of it. But they haven't got a copy of the contract with both signatures, so that contract is null and void. Proof of claim that the funds advanced to myself were thieving bank's assets from the outset, and were neither created for the thieving bank by signature, promise, or promissory note, nor were they created upon thieving bank's books by mere bookkeeping entries as per Bank of England quarterly report. Well, they can't prove that because that's exactly what they're doing. Yeah? Proof of claim that thieving banks risk any of their assets regarding the loan, and if this is not the case, please prove that this was fully disclosed to the account holder. Can't do that either. Proof of claim that any contract of any element of fraud or deception is not null and void. So they can't prove that, it's null and void. Yeah? You grant them 40 days to reply, otherwise under full commercial liability and penalties of perjury. And this you can put on any document you want to stop them from phoning you all the time. You can say, I wish to deal with this matter in writing. I do not give your organisation permission to contact me by telephone. I warn you that any calls will constitute harassment and renders you liable for Section 1 of the Protection of Harassment Act 1997. Okay? Now, people have used letters like this, and here's an example of one of the replies. And I know you can't read it, so I'll read it. So, we appreciate that under Section 78 of the Consumer Credit Act, if you decide not to meet your obligations under the credit card agreement as they fall due, but we will be unable to take steps to enforce repayment of your card by court action. Nevertheless, we expect you to meet your obligations. So what they're just saying is, we can't make you pay this, you know, so but please pay us anyway. Yeah? So this, they go on to say, to try and frighten you by saying, what is it? Oh yeah, if you do not make your card payments as they fall due, we will report your default to the credit reference agencies. So when you get rid of one of your debts with one of these letters, they might threaten you that they'll put a black mark against you in these credit reference agencies. All you have to do is say, go to Experian or whoever it is and say, I dispute this debt. Yeah, I dispute this debt. Now they have to go and prove that there was a debt, but they can't. So that mark goes away. Okay.
Would any other bank ever touch you after that? And wouldn't that stop you ever buying anything online or being able to use any kind of bank service in the future?
It will possibly stop them from loaning you anything again. But you know what? Do you really want to do that anymore? Yeah.
Lots of stuff's online. You buy stuff.
No, not online. I mean, get a loan.
Any bank stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, once you know how you're being shafted, do you want to carry on being shafted? You know. Anyway, that's your choice. If you want to, feel free. Let's move on.
Just a quickie before we get off bank notice.
Yeah.
Direct debits, I've heard that they're a bit suspect.
I wouldn't say suspect because there's a useful thing you can do with direct debits. For instance, if you're paying council tax with direct debits, if you I didn't go through council tax, sorry. But if you challenge your council tax in a certain way, and you put at the end of your letter that if you fail to answer my query here, I'm not only stop paying council tax, but I'll be seeking all my payments up to date, you know, back. And then you can go to the bank and get a direct debit clawback and get everything you paid them back. And you don't have to go through the council for that, you just go to the bank. Right, so, yes, so, again, very quickly, how much time?
You've got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, bloody hell. Alright, so presentment, things you get through the door, yeah? Best thing to do when you get one, no contract return to sender, yeah? Anything comes through the door, you don't really like the look of, just scribble out the address line, write no contract return to sender, put it back in the postbox. Yeah? With council tax, you do that when you first move into an area, they send you their letters, you just do that, just keep doing that. Eventually you'll send somebody around to hand deliver it to you. You steam it open, go, that's the council. Close it back up again, so, right, no contract return to sender, and hand deliver it to their offices. Okay? They don't get a handle on it. Okay? Yeah, very quickly. You've basically got 3 days to respond to any presentment. Yeah? That's 72 hours, standard business practice. If you leave it any longer than that, your silence will be deemed as consent. Okay? I've got no time. Yeah, so if you do open it, because again, it's mail fraud if you open somebody else's letters, and the name in all capital letters is not you, it's your person. So don't open it, it's not your letter. So send it back, if you do open it, write open in error at the top. So you're saying that I opened it, but I'm not consenting to be that straw man. Yeah? You can issue a notice of rejection. I'll really go quickly with this. The notice of rejection is saying that you're a private company. Yeah? Show me that I've got a contract with you, or I breached common law in some way. If you can't show me I breached common law, I reject your demand for cause without dishonour. Yeah? If you have a contract, or if you can't show me a contract, I do not wish to trade with your company. Simple as that. Yeah? And you can add your fee schedule. So any letters that you send or read, you can charge for it. Any emails you send, any research you have to do, you can charge per hour. Yeah? You've got an inconvenience fee or whatever. Yeah? But you charge for your time. Okay, so common law solution, the promissory note. Okay? If you feel you have to pay, if you feel you really do have to pay, yeah, you can write a promissory note because there's no actual money. Yeah? The promissory notes you'll hand you around from your pocket. Yeah? Well, they're just that. There's no money behind them. It says I promise to pay the bearer £20. If you go to the Bank of England and say, I want my £20, yeah, they'll give you 2 tens and throw you out. Yeah? Back in the past, you'd take £20 to the Bank of England, they'll give you a whole load of silver. Not anymore. There's no money. Okay? This country's been bankrupt for generations. Right? So they're all IOUs and empty promises. Yeah? So if you are forced to pay, no time. If you're forced to pay, right, you ask the people, can you pay in cash? And if they say yes, which they will, right, you write them out a promissory note, because it says in the Bill of Exchange Act, 1882, that a promissory note must be treated as cash. Yeah? This is just a promissory note. So this is my promissory note. It's a version that I made. I like to put it on fancy certificate paper to make it look grand. Yeah? But it's just got like the amount in numbers, the amount in letters. Yeah? I promise to pay the bearer on demand, the sum of. And I say under here, subsequent to the Bank of England having honoured their promises on their banknotes. They'll never honour their promises because there's no money. Yeah? So as soon as they honour their promises, I'll honour my promise. Okay? The difference I make with my promissory notes is I put a space for 3 witnesses. So 3 witnesses to sign that you signed it. Okay? That has power. Okay? I subsequently found out that other people get a notary public to stamp it. That gives the same power as 3 witnesses. Okay?
Are they obliged to do that for you for a fee, the notary?
Yes, they will charge you for that. But 3 witnesses will do as well. Now this is a ruling and more case law here from a case by Lord Denning. Okay, we've repeatedly said in this court that a bill of exchange or promissory note is to be treated as cash. It is to be honoured unless there is a good reason to the contrary. I.e., there's an arguable case based on a total failure of consideration. The point is, it has to be treated as cash. Okay? Here's a case where a borrower used a promissory note to pay a mortgage. Okay? This guy in Ireland, right, he reasoned that back in 2010, during the banking crisis, the finance minister of Ireland went on television and he wrote out a promissory note for €31 billion. On television. He wrote this promissory note out, gave it to the Anglo Irish Bank, and now they're out of debt on the basis of this promissory note. Okay? So this guy reasoned that if the finance minister can do it, well, I can too. Okay, so he wrote a promissory note out for the mortgage company, and he got taken to court, and the county registrar confirmed that it was a valid defence. He quoted the Bill of Exchange Act and Lord Denning's ruling, and it was a valid defence. Now, the first thing about this is that I cannot find this story online. There's nothing online about this story. I had to get the actual newspaper clipping. Okay? Now, I don't know what happened about this case, but, you know, you can bet if he lost that case, it'd be splashed all over the internet, wouldn't it? You know, man tries to pay his mortgage with promissory note, gets put in prison. Yeah? But no, there's nothing about it, so I can only conclude that he was successful with this. Okay? So I'm going to have to whiz past the cards up.
Was that recent?
Sorry?
Was that recent?
Yes, it's very recent. And I can't remember the date as well. Right, so I'm not quite finished. Not quite finished. Give me a second. Right, first of all, you've all broken the law. All of you. I don't know if you noticed my notice. Seen it up, right in plain sight. Didn't see this.
You haven't seen our notice, put your mask on.
Notice, by sitting in this room, you agree to the following conditions. It is an offence to say the word banana under any circumstances. It is an offence to stand on one leg. So, because of that, it's a fair call.
Oh no.
You're all under arrest. Right, so let's get going here. Banana. You're under arrest need a volunteer. Stand up. You're under arrest, you followed my orders. Thank you. See how easy that was? He followed my orders, he gave authority over to me. You see that? You answered my question. Thank you. You're under arrest. Oh, so how are you today? You waiting for me? Hello. Oh, you're not talking to me now. You're not going to talk to me.
Rice versus curling.
Well done. He's learned. Stand up.
I was reading your...
Stand up. Show. Thank you. You've done it. For this next one, you're going to have to stand up for this one. No, I'll take my helmet on. I'll take my helmet off.
It might be a play close, mate. I don't trust you.
Oh, you've got me. Very smart, very smart. Okay. Have you had practice? Have you practiced? She said you had practice. You had practice.
Do you need to know the answer to
Okay. See, tough cookie, that one. Oh man, how are you? Well, I'm going to ask, now if you've seen somebody do something one way, you've got to try and find a different way to deal with it, okay? It's not, I'm not make it easy, interesting for people. So how are you today, man? He's already done silence.
Doesn't matter, you can carry on.
So you
can do it.
So, are you going to answer me now?
What authority do you ask?
Because I'm a police officer. Can you see my hat and my big nose? So what's your name? Hesitation, I've won. I'll let you off. Oh, I know you. You're Chris, aren't you?
What's your name?
You don't have to run away. Look, I'm not Chris. I think you're guilty of something, mate. I think you're guilty of something.
That's not street light.
Wow, that must be really terrifying as a cop. Yeah, so I believe your name's Chris, isn't it?
What's your name?
Well, I asked first, what's your name? You're Chris, aren't you?
Where are you from?
Okay, look. I'm trying to ascertain whether you're here legally, actually. So, well, I need to know. I'm a police officer.
So what?
So what?
Say all right, maybe.
Well, that wasn't going into that, was it? God, that was tricky. These guys were tricky. I mean, I'm not going to get around to all of you, but can you see how easy it is to fall for their tricks? Yeah? By giving your authority away. Once you give that one bit of authority, right, they'll run away with it. Okay? But, yeah. I'm not even a real problem, mate. It's completely. Alright, so really, we've been living in Disneyland. Yeah? This fake world over the top of the real one. Okay, most people interact with that, never get to know the real world underneath. Okay? And this is it, this is the clown world of the legal system and all that, and never get to interact with the truth. And this sums it up really. The chains that bind us are just illusions. As soon as you find out who you really are, that you're that sovereign being, over the top of all of this, okay, you'll start acting like that guy who was talking to those two coppers. Yeah? You'll know your position above them, and you'll act accordingly. That's all I want to say. Thanks very much.
Just wanted to say, obviously, on behalf of us, wonderful, what a fascinating talk. And I'm curious, would people please raise their arms if they would be interested in having a longer session?
That's one.
That's a full house. Brilliant. we will make plans, we will get something organised and we'll put the message out and yeah, we'll do it again. And it's kind of whistle-stop tour, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, whoosh through it, yeah.
One last thing just to say is we're Mid Sussex Assembly who've organised this. Google us, find us, come see me afterwards, and if you want to get more involved, you're very welcome to join us. There's no fee to join. And we're going for drinks now at the Wetherspoons in Burgess Hill. You're very welcome to join us. It's a good day, obviously. We'll buy you a drink at least. And yeah, so thank you very much. Good night.